Welcome to Business Rant and Growth. Today we'll be discussing the Ukraine-Russia conflict being dubbed the first crypto war. Before we start, help this channel grow by pressing the subscribe button and notification. Let's get going. So in case you've been living under a rock, Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th this year. Okay. Now, I didn't notice it immediately, but over time I started realizing that cryptocurrencies were being raised for the Ukraine-Russia conflicts, more so the Ukraine, from my understanding, right? Real quick, I want to cover some facts or some data about how much money has been raised. So, so far, for the last time I checked, it was about 108 million. NFT project like Bored Ape Yacht Club have donated $2 million worth of Ether. A group called Ukrainian DAO raised nearly $7 million for the war effort by auctioning the NFTs of Ukraine flags. Let's see, OnlyFans has raised 1.3 million worth of cryptocurrency. Yeah, OnlyFans, that's yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I believe a lot of people have donated 60-something million as far as like individuals to the Ukrainian funding, refugee funding. Now, I personally love the idea of crypto. I've invested in it. I think it's a wonderful idea. But this takes a whole new approach. How can I put this? This makes me not necessarily rethink why we need crypto, but I guess find deeper meaning behind crypto, right? And the reason why I say that is because we like to think of what we like usually one-dimensionally, right? Like we just think of all the good things that's happening with cryptocurrency, for example, right? Like all the money being made, people rising out of poverty, and now this is not based on perspective of whether we think if it's ethically moral or morally, right or wrong to invest in crypto. I know some people are very against crypto. I respect your opinion. But that being said, I never thought about crypto being used to fund a war, and specifically individuals donating to a war. Now, I want everybody to think about this just for a second. A lot of us were mad about, like countries, governments funding wars, selling planes. I remember some people talk about U.S. profiting off of, the Middle East, so forth and so forth, right? Now, we tend to think as a government, as its own entity, which it pretty much it is, right? Now, this is a whole new territory for individuals to get involved with funding a war. And if you also been thinking about this, let me know in the comments. Now Ukraine is very big on cryptocurrency, right? Ukrainian miners are heavy into Bitcoin, right? Like nearly half of the world's Bitcoins were mined in Ukraine alone. So just let that sink in, right? So they clearly value and love the idea of cryptocurrency. The value of daily cryptocurrency transactions total 150 million, exceeding the volume of interbank exchanges, right? So this is, a really big deal for Ukraine, probably more so the citizens, which is what blockchain crypto is all about, right? Crypto and blockchain technology is all about democracy, decentralization, freedom, financial freedom, right? But I don't think we ever consider the ethical and moral boundaries of cryptocurrencies. One, most average citizens, including me, would have never predicted a war coming from Russia, right? And then seeing people pour money into Ukraine got me thinking. I try to think philosophical, and it's just like, well, gee, I wonder, are we gonna be considered involved in war, as in blood on our hands, right? And I think this is something that's gonna eventually become an issue, right? It's easy to think about funding a war because you believe in it, right? But we forget that war is nasty on all ends, right? And everybody's hands are now, or whoever have donated, their hands are now dirty to a degree. Okay, there's no guarantee that all that money went straight to Ukraine, right? There's a lot of things that can happen: hacking, Russians having fake accounts, which I believe there were some Russians getting Ukrainian IDs, and creating cryptocurrency accounts with those IDs. I have to look further into it, but I believe that was some article mentioned that they were finding some Russians doing that. Now, this is where technology and the boundaries of it is going to really need a heavy conversation. And the reason why I say that is because we have to remember that a lot of this stuff is based upon perspective, right? And I'm not against helping Ukraine. But here's my point. If everybody is now on an individual level, right, citizen level, funding wars, right, now we have to start thinking about how that can how can that sort of be impacted in the future civilizations, right? Because if the whole world shifts into a more dictatorship, communism sort of mentality, then will the idea of funding war increase the sort of stronghold that belief system can now have over a nation? It's interesting. Now, on the flip side, I know a lot of people are going to be wanting to regulate crypto, right? And that's going to be a problem because, as Binance have stated, let me read it for a second. They said crypto is meant to provide greater financial freedom for people across the globe. To unilaterally decide to ban people's access to their crypto would fly in the face of the reason why crypto exists. That is true. And I think this is where, as businesses as entrepreneurs, we need to be very mindful of the technology and how it's being used, right? Because I believe there were some efforts from ISIS and other radical organizations that were swindling or convincing people to donate to, to this cryptocurrency, and, it'll return a profit and whatnot. And I believe they did raise some money. I don't know how far they got. Okay. But this is the first crypto war, as it has been dubbed. And the reasons why is because, well, there's been funding through cryptocurrency, from my understanding, on both ends. Now, take aside moralistic value, right? Like right or wrong, perception and all that other stuff, right? Just look at the tool being used. Okay. We're now entering an era where people are aiding war efforts. And I'm not talking about like it's never happened. Obviously, I'm talking about from a financial standpoint, funding it. Right. And I just am skeptical. Because although a lot of us have good intentions, I believe history has shown that a lot of things start to happen that we're not taking account of, like hacking. What happens if those funds are hacked and some $50 million go towards, some ISIS-like organization? Then what? How are we guaranteeing that the money is being strictly sent over to the right people, or where it's intended to go? And you can't really stop hacking. Hacking is one of those unfortunate or fortunate sort of things where, people are going to do it no matter what. And it's just going to keep evolving. So the idea of getting rid of hacking is out of the question. Unless there's some new technology that can actively, in real time, I guess, block hacking attempts. But, man, that's until how far away that is. But back to the main point, right? If crypto was meant to provide greater financial freedom for people across the globe, which is true, it's what crypto is meant for, then this comes to mind about perception, right? Because if I am pro-Russia and I somehow view Ukraine as a something that's taking away my freedom or something weird, then now am I wrong? And this is where this is the problem that's going to come into play is we can't just simply say, you're right and you're wrong. There's usually a lot of gray areas to this. We have corporations donating money. We have people donating money. And I don't think there's been a question raised as it pertains to the ethical and moral bounds to what we're doing, right? Russia is also being, given money. I know some companies have worked to sort of restrict accounts to Russians, but there's so many loopholes around this stuff that, I mean, honestly, it's just pointless. Technology is a double-edged sword. Technology enables great things and it also enables bad things. Like now, I'm pretty sure there's new ways to get passports and, IDs and operate under some other country. And yeah, it's like, it was easy years ago when it was just paper, right? But now it's, if I wanted to hide, I can just, go to some country that's more loose with their rules and regulations and, pay a nice fee and get my passport or, ID, and there you go. How are they gonna, What they gonna do? They decided to get the fee, But I have a new passport, I have a new ID. I can operate under that, and how you gonna stop that? Not to mention that crypto is mostly and largely untraced. Okay, so it's not like you can just look up the transaction number and say, okay, so this person is from Russia and this person is from Ukraine. It's not that simple, right? Now, I'm sure the companies have ways to track that down, but I mean, most of it is largely untraced, which is another concern that's going around. And I think society is going to need to have a conversation about the moral and ethical implications of crypto, right? Because this scares me. I don't know about everybody else, but it scares me because war, what's right and wrong, is largely based upon perception. It is, right? And as much as we may think it's just, plain old good and bad, is not. It's a lot of gray area. I can tell you, we all know that a lot of people in the Germany military, they probably thought that they were fighting for the right cause. We can judge them all we want, but the fact is, a lot of these things come down to perceptions and angles of viewpoints that we may not understand. We in America, we live differently. We don't know what it's like to be in Ukraine, in Russia, and in that whole entanglement. We don't know, right? I'm not the biggest fan of governments in general, so I can tell you that right now. So I'm very leery about governments in general. So to see them raising money, to see them, to see cryptocurrency being used for a fund of war from individuals, from citizens, it's a tad bit scary for me. And I think it's going to call into question, as I said before, the moral, ethical bounds of what we're doing as a society, as a world. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy that people who are refugees, people who are in need, are able to find help through cryptocurrency right now. I'm not blind. Like, I think that's wonderful. And it's a great use of what crypto is meant to, be able to do, or allowed to do rather. However, there's always the opposite end of the spectrum. So people who are all against the war, there are also people who are all for the war. And, whether we agree or not, they think they're right. You see what I'm saying? So I just thought that was interesting that, the Ukrainian government literally raised over $100 million from cryptocurrency. That is bonkers. They're able to, buy, I'm assuming military weaponry with it. People who are stuck over there are able to use the funds to, I guess buy, essentials or buy their way out of Ukraine or whatever ordeals are going on. So it's an interesting situation that I don't think is being talked about enough in regards to the implications of ordinary citizens funding a war. And it's something to think about. If you have an opinion about it, whether you think it's good or bad, or or whatever your thoughts on it, I'd love to hear it. Leave a comment in the comment section below, and thanks for listening.